5 to 1.
What? Oh, cool. My internet is really slow. So it's loading. It's fetching Git repository. Because you can actually create project from Git. So and stuff. So you can see here I have like kind of an editor where I have the files here. And it's the same as create React app. You can see public and source. And there is an index here. And
Are you recording?
Yeah.
yes.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Yes, I'm doing that. So yeah, we wait for sure for the 1 megabyte JavaScript to load. Yeah, so I can take maybe 2 minutes while waiting to explain this. So can you see this? It's a function
Yeah.
that is returning some JSX or HTML, call it as you like. So usually we write it in class components. Remember, we have a class with the render, and the render will return whatever we want to show. There is also another alternative, which is like more simpler, which is the function way. So you can write a function. No, you can write a function and just return some JSX inside it. This is more limited because you don't have a class and all the construct. We will see why it's limited and why no, it's not limited. But this is another alternative to write React components using functions.
Refresh the page.
Like this. You told me to refresh the page.
No, not that page. It's this page.
You didn't specify. You should be clear next time. Refresh the page that it's embedded inside the website.
The page because it's finished.
This
What's
is-
the internet problem? Or?
I meant this, yeah.
Yeah, that.
No. But
No.
it's still.
That's not cool. But yeah, so this is a way you can write. So instead of doing, so if I will write this in a class, I will say, so I will just close this. How to toggle it? Can't see. But anyways, I will open the browser in a separate one and just say hide browser. Yeah. So I can write a class called app. I will name it app2 and extend react.component. You remember all these steps?
Yeah.
And we have a render. And inside the render, we return some JSX, which is something that looks like HTML.
Yeah, but
And
you
it's
know what you do now? It gives me a problem because if I don't do the round bracket on the return, it gives me an error every time.
It doesn't, unless if you are doing this. This doesn't work because there is something in JavaScript called automatic semicolon insertion, which is like, so it's.
So if we do like this,
it's fine.
and then
It's
we
fine.
do enter.
Parentheses are just a way to group expressions. So you can group some expressions, but it's not something that. This is so. It's so slow. Probably I will use my internet mobile. I'll just use my internet. I don't know if it's fast enough. I will try to read them. Supernova. It's definitely fast enough. So, as we said that, I just opened. Yeah, so we said that we can create a class up to extend React component. Okay, with the render, and in the render we return some
element.
JSX. It's like hello. Okay, what? It didn't work because I'm not rendering it. So we have hello. It's stupid, but the whole point is like I can copy this and put it inside. Okay, and I have the same thing that it's called sandbox, but you can see the difference between this one and this one.
Yeah.
One is a function, one is a class. But technically they are, so it's just like having a render.
But they are the same, no?
They are
Different way to write code. One is you can see function add, and another one is a class called add2 that extends component.
Okay.
So this is React class. This is a functional component. This is called a class component. This is a function component.
Yes, you are right.
Technically, they do the same. We will see the difference as we are going with the class. But from a basic point of view, these are a way to create components. This is this one is much simpler than this one, to be honest. Okay.
Function.
Yeah, the function, you can see that it's just a function that returns something.
Okay.
It's simpler. You don't need to extend. You don't need to do anything. I think you agree with me about this, that the function is much simpler. I don't know if you agree, but because the class there is a lot of ceremony with the extends and stuff and like whatever is happening. But you will tell me something. Let's say that hello. Okay, I will remove the h2. And say here this dot props dot name, for example. Okay? So name, I can reference it here. I can say name equal Yunus, for example. And that will give me hello Yunus. Is that clear? Just using props. How I will use props in the app? Should I use this?
No.
No.
You
It's
call
not a
it-
class.
You call it as a callback
The
function.
property for app.
No. Simply,
Props.
usually how a function can receive informations is using the arguments.
Yeah.
Yes, you are right.
So I can put props here, and I say
This prop is just a name, yes? You can put whatever you want.
this is the way to do it. Okay?
Oh.
And I can say instead of up one, I keep up two, but I only render up one, which is moreover the same result. Okay? There is nothing special about like, because you know in JavaScript, arguments are about the order, not the name. So if I have a function f a b c, return a plus b plus c, okay? And I call f with 1, 2, 3. A will be 1, B will be 2, and C will be 3. Why? Because it follows the order. There's nothing. I can name this hello. It will not change anything except I just change it here. But this will be the first. This one will be the second. So when you call a function, you get the list here. You apply it to the list here. What I'm trying to say is props here. It doesn't mean anything. I can say params and say params.name. There's no difference. It's only I'm giving a name to this variable. which is kind of a variable. It's a parameter or an argument, but it's a variable itself. Make sense?
Yeah.
To some extent? Cool. So this is a functional component, all of it.
So can you change these props to these props?
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
Can we say this? He's saying can we do this?
Can you
No.
do that?
No.
Yes, but you have to change the.
Why would you change it?
It's the problem.
No,
No.
you cannot do that.
You cannot do that because React is saying like,
So props is a reserved keyword. Okay.
Keyword.
yeah, like the class is choosing to set it for you, not you. It's like React, because you are extending React.component,
Yeah,
React is internally taking all this stuff
yeah.
and assigning it to this dot state.
But what about the function?
In the function is just a parameter. As I explained, no, it's an order. So React will do this. You say like, take props, your component.
It's part,
Props.
part of the object that React component has in the.
Yeah.
in the-
So this is how React is doing. It's taking your props and calling your component with props.
Yeah.
Okay. So don't confuse it with this dot props. Clear? Just name it by props. So I will try to do it as I said, the way I like to do it. So I will create here. So first thing, what I will do is I will create const list. Say to dos. It's an array, and I will say text. I will say it's do one, and let's say deadline. It's new date. Okay. ID is 1. And I can keep repeating. 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's like 2, 3, 4, 5. Date, it doesn't matter.
There is something wrong.
Yeah, it's these. Okay. Thank you. So now I want to create a component that renders the to-dos. So I will say to-do list. I will say to items, to-dos. To-dos list doesn't exist. I go to import to-do list from to-do list, still doesn't exist. I will say new file, to-do list.js. I can say JSX, it's fine. Up to you. I will say import React from React. Okay. I will say
Export.
we can use a function. Say function to do list no props, and we say return null just as a export default to do list. So now I can say console.log props.items, because I've said here that items is bounded to to-dos. So items will be the key, to-dos will be the value. Okay? So here I can say props.items.
Yeah.
If I will go here and
Okay.
because I'm passing the array here
Yeah.
and I'm referencing the array here. So now I can say I'm sure about it, so I can say return props.items.map. Just wrap it in a UL, okay, and say this props.items.map. Okay, I will take one to do each time and return to do I will just return null.
Dot.
I will return null. Just a second. Nothing again. So now we need to return something here. So I will create a component called I will use a class now. Class to do item extends react dot component. With a render. Okay? And I will say return li with text. Sorry. So here I can say but before that I would just prefer to do it this way. And here I can render to do item. Is it confusing?
Yeah.
What? Oh, okay.
I'm just iterating over the items and returning a to do item every time, which is a separate component. I can totally like take the li and put it here. So I will pass text. I will say to do dot text, and here I will say to do dot text. No, I will say this dot props dot to do text. Is this right?
Nope. You do these props dot text.
Precisely. Why? Because I'm passing text here. So now I have do 1, do 2, do 3. React is nagging me about the key. So I can say key is to do dot id, because I've already put an id here, preparing myself for this moment where React will start complaining. Yes, so this is a simple thing. I want to show you one thing, which is like, so instead of doing here, so let's say I also need the deadline. Deadline. I would say deadline equal to do dot deadline. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Because it's string, you can maybe do, yeah.
Up to date string.
Yeah. We can do that. Moreover, what we want, so we can also do to daytime something, but this is enough to demonstrate. Something I want to show, this is kind of repetitive. This dot props the text, this dot props the deadline, this dot, it's too much. So what we can do is like do this const text equal this dot props and const deadline.
Excuse me, in the line 19, what is that that line between these props?
This one?
Yes.
It's only like I can do this. It's like it's just
Can be
separating.
styled. Like on display, it will like first part dash
Okay.
next.
It's like having this one here.
Okay.
It's nothing special. Okay? So I can do this and transform this to text and this to deadline. This is better. There's even better. What we can do?
This dot prop dot text.
We can do something called destructuring. And what does it mean is taking values from an object. So if I will comment these lines, I can say const, okay, an object, and I say this dot props. So this dot props is an object that has some keys. So we can grab these keys here. We can say, before doing this, I will try to explain something really fast. Are you all familiar with this? So I can say let's say I have like let's say I have var name equal, okay, I can say var user equal name. Just creating a user with the name, and the value will be that name. It will be this. So in AS6 or are you familiar? Do you like hear the word like AS6 more often on AS7 and AS5 and AS8? Yeah. So I don't know if you are familiar about that, but basically, like your browser, like your laptop, there is versions. Every time you have new headphones, a new Galaxy S9, Galaxy S10. So JavaScript is the same. JavaScript is a language where there's some people behind it, and these people like publish a version every time with a better JavaScript while listening to you, the developers, us, and figuring out they need this, they need a class. They didn't have a class before. Now let's create a class. So this is like versioning, like any language or any tool in real life, like software, Chrome 5, Chrome 6, Chrome 7. And the ES6, ES means ECMAScript. And ECMAScript is some people or a standard. It's a standard of languages. So ECMAScript is not one language and it's not a real language. It's just a standard that describe language. So we want this and this and this and this and this. And the other languages like JavaScript, like other, I don't know, probably TypeScript, for example, they actually follow this rules. So this language will, this specification, it's not a real language, but they will say, we have a class, and you say extend, and you have a function, and you have arguments, and you have let, and you have const, and you have var, and the browser vendors like Chrome and stuff, they implement that. And they call it JavaScript. So this is why we say AS6 and AS5 and 7. AS means ECMAScript. It's the body behind organizing languages, scripting languages like JavaScript, and the ActionScript and like these kind of weird languages. And the number is the 7. Sometimes you hear like AS 2015. It means only the year that thing was published. But usually we say AS6, AS7, AS9. That's the proper thing. And we had like AS3, AS5, AS1, really old in 2001 and 99 and stuff like that. So this is basically what it means. So in AS6, a new version that was introduced in 2015, there was like huge changes, like huge. There was like the addition of a class, generators, a lot of stuff. Like promises async await, that was AS7, but there was a lot of addition from 2015 coming forward. Is it clear a bit? But this is not something you really need, but it's good to know, especially in interviews and stuff that demonstrate that you are like well grounded about the thing. So there is a feature called property shorthand. What does property shorthand means is if you have a name like this, so the key and the value are, no, the key and the variable that it's referencing the value are the same, you can actually omit the one of them. So you can say this. You can do this. Because the key and the variable that is we are getting the value from are the same. So we can, instead of saying name, or user, or age, we can say name. And JavaScript will do it, will convert it to this. Okay? And we can say, for example, like, we can try it in this one. So if we say like, you can see this will be converted to this, simply. If you have age here, so this will be that, just to keep an idea. Okay, this is called property shorthand. So it's like shorthanding the stuff instead of writing a long line. This is a new JavaScript feature. It's not new. We are already in 2019. People keep saying new, and it's new kind of. So why I'm discussing this? Because with this we can do something really powerful called destructuring. And what does destructuring mean? It's like getting one variable, which is an object, and so instead of building an object, we can destructure an object. and build and get the values out of it. So I can say const okay, I can put name here and age. What does it mean? It say like name equal user.name, age equal user.age. It's like destructuring. It's literally the word. Is it clear?
Like when you have a function in
Yeah.
mathematics that you have to simplify it and
Yeah, precisely. So this is called destructuring, and the first one called shorthand. Properties one. Is it clear? So it's only declaring these variables for you. These are not really real changes, but these are changes that makes your code shorter. But it's not really new knowledge. It's like you can do it without it. It just like makes your code shorter and better. So if we have a user, let's say we can have like name, and name will be first and last. We can have const first equal this, const last. Okay. Now we have name, and inside it we have first. So first will be converted to first, last. Okay. And here name is an object. It's not a value anymore. You can see that name is an object that contains first name. We can do that recursively. Go inside and pick first. Just first, not for example. Oh yeah, because it's duplicate declaration.
It's const.
So I'll just remove this, just like last. For example, it doesn't matter, but so now you can see that last is equal to user.name.last. So now instead of typing the whole thing, you can go inside and pick values straight away. Is this clear?
Yeah.
Cool. Why I'm showing this? Because here instead we can say const this.props and take text and deadline.
But then we have to change it in the li. We should make text a deadline.
We are having text and deadline.
Oh, okay, yeah, right. It this product
Okay, do you know why that is more powerful? Like the destruction that you have just learned. Why that is more powerful? Like why people using that thing very often? Do you know?
Because the same thing you give it, you assign it to a lot of variables.
The thing is that while you develop something, like for example, you don't know nothing, okay? You are trying to create a component, and your component is more independent now. You are not something dependent on other things. So you know that in my component, what I need to do, I need to just display the text and the time. So you don't need to think about anything. So you know that I have some kind of props that should have a text and a deadline. Just forget about all other things. So you are just creating a component. You know that I need to display a text and a deadline. So my props should get text and deadline. So you just type it text and deadline and then use it. Then later place, some other developer might use your component, and he just send, okay, I have to send text and deadline. That's fine. So it's a kind of independent development, independent idea. So people can use your component, and you are developing your component in a way that anyone can use. So it's a kind of flexibility that destruction gives you actually. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, that's really awesome. You can see now, as he said, that your component inside doesn't depend on props or something. You already got all the props here. So in any developer, he can see that you need text and deadline. You don't need other things from other stuff. This is exactly what you need. Clear?
Understand? Ask question.
Ask please. Like it's more like because like you are in a level where you are almost like us. So we can discuss about the code. Like I'm not take this and I'll show you. We are learning the framework together. So just discuss. If you have an idea, you have another way of doing it. Of course, don't be like Badr and talk about jQuery. But I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So except that is fine to ask.
It's useful for a big project and you have a lot of props. So
Yeah.
one person knows just about the props and write, for example, one component and the other one wrote the other component, and after that they can connect it without know about the components.
Precisely.
the-
Yeah.
Just about the
Yeah.
props.
Precisely.
Also, we use some components, ready components.
Oh yeah. Already made.
Yeah.
It's like plugins and stuff. Yes,
So-
you can use components from the community, like install them from npm. Yeah, good.
In line 15, when you wrote these props,
Yeah.
actually you were referring to the line 7, yes?
Yeah, depends. Like I can render this component twice. So will it be line 7 or line 8? I'm referring to where the component it's displayed.
Okay, I mean that.
But in this case, yes, it's line 7.
Okay, then when you wrote in the line 15, in the curly bracket you wrote text and deadline.
Yeah.
They are just a name. You could.
Yeah, I can. For example, I can say this and use his terminology and say time
Okay, you have to change both of them at the same time.
because it's referencing the key inside the object. It's like this one.
It is a connection.
But you
You
don't
say-
have to change it.
Just a second. Let's like for example this one. We have like name, first and last.
Yeah.
When we get it from inside, we need to specify the same keys. Otherwise, JavaScript will not know what I want.
Okay.
It's like I want Omid. I cannot name you anything.
Okay.
A guy. Like what do you mean? Like you need to give a specific name, specific pointer.
Okay, I got my question. I got my answer.
So this is why. So this is a shorthand
Yeah.
to actually instead of displaying this dot props text this props. This is like a.
Okay. In somehow, if you want, for example, somewhere is text, somewhere is number, somewhere is date. Can we separate that const or go through the yes?
You mean this?
Yes. For example, we want to use if condition. Sorry, condition. No, sorry. If condition.
Yeah. To what?
Yeah.
Yes.
If there is number or
to what?
Yeah. Give us a use case
Yeah.
so we can reason about it.
Because your component should be concrete actually. Like what is the purpose? Like here the purpose is to display the text and the line.
Yeah.
So they're very specific.
Yeah.
So to make your life easy,
Yeah.
no need to think too complex thing without any reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously if you found any reason, we should discuss. Okay? But I think just keep your component as simple as you can.
But just to get the idea that what we are getting here is like this dot props dot text. This is literally the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like taking keys out of an object. Not really complex. And it's not something new. It's just like short, like less code. Is it clear? So moreover, this is how I will build a to actually. Any questions about props, function component, class component, this dot props, stuff like that? Because we can pass to other interesting stuff.
I have a question. Which one you prefer? Right? Component
Let's
or
fight.
class?
Let's fight about it.
Yeah, class component. Which one you prefer?
In this week I was practicing a lot, but I learned class is much better.
Okay.
Because then you can use the constructor and put more
I don't want.
inside of the
I
class.
don't want to disappoint you, but because of the latest version of React, which is like 1 month ago,
Yeah.
this story changed. Now, functions are as powerful as classes. You can have like
I
state
hope, I
and
hope
stuff.
you're right because the function is
No.
very easy, but the class is make it very
Yeah, like if you think about old JavaScript developer,
Yeah.
they always come up with functions and all the things.
Yeah.
So it will be a little bit easier for those people.
Yeah.
Like, but if you're starting from kind of object-oriented world like PHP or .NET or Java, whatever, then your mind wants something called class and this and that.
Yes.
So it's
Yeah.
two different tests.
Yeah.
Exactly,
And,
it's
uh,
weird. Yes.
Yeah,
But
sometimes
with
it also
both of them is working.
yeah,
You have more choice.
but there are problem is that it highly depends on the company where you work or the team
True.
you work, like the environment. They said that okay, we use this, so please let's do that. Something like that actually.
Yeah, go ahead.
For each component, we have to create each function, or you can, it's only one function. We have to keep it as a main, and we can create more components.
I don't. I think I don't know if I sure get you. Let me like try to correct me if I'm wrong. So you means, for example, we have a to-do item. So we created here 5 to-do items because the array is 5 entries.
Okay.
So we created 5. So this is the whole thing about like, I did it last time. I don't know if I still have it. Yeah, it's this one. Just to, this is what we showed last time.
Yeah.
That this is like this is the old web. We create JavaScript and HTML. So if you want to build YouTube, you just do it this way. But with the new world, what we are doing now is like dividing the web page into small components, like video list, details, comments, and inside video list you have specific videos. So you have 5 video components or 4, and you just do this header, video details, the same way we are doing here to do item and stuff like that. So this is the idea of what we are doing. So we can create one component and reuse it in a lot of places. So you can create a to-do item and put it in a lot of places. I can literally, for example, here have a to-do. I can say here dev to-do. I can render another to-do, like literally. That would be stupid, but that's possible.
Okay.
2 to-dos. And I can render this to-do with an empty list. It will not show anything. We can do something better. We can go to our component and say if props dot items dot length
Equals 0.
is less than 1, equals 0, more than, up to you, is less than 1, return h3, for example. No to-dos.
items, yeah.
You are good. So the first component and the second component are the same component, but they are reacting differently to the props. This is what we can do. For example, Facebook, when you have like a post, it's the same component, but it's just a different picture, different list of comments, and a different profile name. But it's the same component. And the same thing with the shot. It's like they are all the same. A green button, picture, and a name. Green button. So it's the same component called shot item. And it takes a name, a picture, and is offline, true or false.
Or if you have like a chat box open in Facebook, it's the same thing. It's just like a chat component that loads your old messages and then just like maps them or something and just displays all your open chats. It's the same concept
Exactly.
everywhere.
Yeah, it's like it's the same friend.
Yeah.
Not like it's all the same, as he said, it's all the same. But it's just like they know based on the props which user it is.
Yes. You do here just, or is it common that make, for example, to do item component in another component?
No, usually you separate them. Usually you separate them. One component per file.
Oh.
Remember this. One component per file. I'm just lazy. And it's Sunday.
Just
See
both of them.
Writing code Sunday, lazy.
Here is the, see both of them.
Yeah.
Both of them.
Yeah, exactly. This is like more clear. We can do something else. Remember the structuring that we did it here? We can do the same here. We can do this. Put an object here. Instead of, it's like calling the function, but we are not calling the function. And put items. Why? Because we had props here. It's just an object. So I can say, sorry, items. Let's see, every time like you see something like this that you don't understand, go to Babel and just try to translate it. So let's say we have a function called f, and it takes props and return props dot A plus props dot B. Okay? We say F and we call it with an object. Let's say const numbers or nums. No, nums. Not months. We don't want lower months. One is enough. So A, it's 4, B, it's 6. And we call it with. You can see here that it's the same code. But if we do this, we can say A and B. So simply, it's getting that prop and putting A equal that prop dot A, B equal that prop dot B. It's like a shorthand. Clear? A bit? Of course, needs practice, but I'm not really saying that you should use this. This is more like some tricks. But there's some people who doesn't use that. They still use like props.a. Up to you. Just trying to show stuff. So here we can say items straight away and items straight away. We can even go and do it here. We can say ID, text, and deadline. Because that was one object here. So we destructured the keys from it. And yeah, only one problem.
There.
You are about to make me dead. Like you are about to kill me. So is this clear? Is this clear?
Yes, is it clear? But we have to practice it.
It's up to you. Yeah. It took me a lot of time to start writing this style, like, and you don't need to write it at all. Like, it's really preference. Cool. So we will keep it here. We will not keep it here, just to mix.
Which one is better? Use props or reference like this one? Use props.
It's not. It's as he said. It's more of a style. It's really a style. It will not impact how your code will run. It's. Yeah, but depends. What do you mean by shorter? If, for example, there's a lot of new developers in your company, you don't want to confuse them, and you don't want to use shortcode. Like, you want to really focus on readable code. That's the most important thing. Readable code. Clear? You don't have any questions somehow about props stuff? No, at least about the stuff that we covered last time. And like, no? Good. It's I literally don't remember where I put my We can do something. We can create a new project. See, desktop, npx, create React app, and we say app example. I think it's this one. Yeah, it's this one. Yeah, yay, I found it. Cool. It's on my phone. It's our project. So I will just start the server. So now we will talk about something called lifecycle. I don't know if any one of you here really read a bit about lifecycle or something. Before I'll just put this, I will share it. Yeah, we are good to go. Oh, the cool stuff from last time. We go to index and we remove this header. And we
Change
say
it up or you do it
it's
later?
literally the same one as last time. Anyone here really read something about life cycle or something? Or someone can have really good explanation about it? I don't know, like life cycle. Components life cycle. What? No. Just the component life cycle. React classes life cycle.
What is your life cycle?
Exactly. That's a good. Yes, that's a good thing to start the debate. Yes.
Or what a personal life cycle? Someone should born and die at some point.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a hard truth, but that's what will
Yeah.
happen.
It's for me, it's for you, it's for everyone. People
But
try
it's
to.
probably like the hold on when I have a small example on the exercise that we used to do is when you call oh my god I need just remember that if when you call something when it's done it's finished it doesn't go back to it it deletes from the you know the oh my god.
Okay, take it easy. So I think
We will not kill you.
It's about
Yeah.
the when the
But I get-
component show in the page, and after that it gets some data and show, and after that we don't
Yeah.
use this one, this component.
why? Why that? Your idea is very good.
Because when the user requests for example for some root, so some component should be shown for user, and after that when we change the roots, the component will change, but not all of the components. Some are components.
Well, that's something, but it's a little bit more. But hopefully you
Well,
will
the example
describe.
I want to make is the call stack. When you call the function and once you call it, it's done. That mean that when you call the component, you know, and you want have a change on that component. Once they give you something, you have to change it somehow, but by refreshing the component again and change it again and giving another props and everything. That's what I
Just
Let's discuss.
yes, please keep it simple. You are going like really like stuff that I don't know. Like just keep it simple. As he said, you will get to life, you will born. After that, you will die. That's a life cycle. And just a second, just want to. Yeah. And it's the same thing actually with your web page. It will like get displayed. After that, you will get sick of it and you will close it. It's a life cycle. So it will enter and it will leave. And it's the same thing actually with your component. Because a component can pass with several like life cycles. And this is kind of the three main. So this is over time, and this is also over time. But this is like happening sequentially, and this is like eventually. If so, let's focus only on this part. Only on this part. Okay? So we will hide all this. We will only focus on this one. Okay? There is only yeah. So we will focus only on this part. So when you create a component, it will be mounted. What does mounting mean? Is like it's like mounting something on the wall. You will put it on the web page. You will mount it. So mounting means like calling the constructor. You remember the constructor? You remember it? No, you don't remember it. So let's create a new component and experiment with it. This is how I learned life cycle. So let's say life cycle. And we create it just here. Class, life cycle, extends react dot component. We have render. and we return an h3 with hello. We move it to the top. This needs to show us hello, precisely. So now you can see there is, just a second, just disable this. Cannot disable my internet. So, yeah, so you can see here now that we have a render. What does the render do? Render is a convention. So if you put render me, will it work?
No.
Why?
Because it's not a method on React component.
No, there's nothing here, a method on React component. We are creating this class, but what I would, it's kind of correct, but more clear way of explaining it. React is dependent on something called render. So React will do like this. React, inside React code, if we will look inside it, we will have like new life cycle. Okay, and for example, new life cycle, and React will do this, render. This is what React is doing. And we say to show, it's like print it to DOM, to show. I'm trying to explain with code, sorry. So React will construct a component, it will call a render method on it, and after that, what you will return, it will be shown in the DOM. Okay? In the browser. So React is calling something called render on your class. So React is saying, please, if you want to show something, call this a render. It's a special method. You know, it's like a convention between you and React. It's like, let's meet at 4. It's like, let's call it render. And render is a way to synchronize and like tell me what you want to render. Is it clear?
Yeah.
And this pattern is found everywhere. So why this is why we name it render. Because it's like a code between us and React. And this is what this is the render. You can see it here. We said that we will only look at this part. The other part we will omit. So can we do this? No. So you can see here that there is a render. And the render is responsible for returning what we want to show. But before the render there is a lot of stuff, and after the render there is a lot of stuff. Okay? Maybe I can just do, no, not this one. Can I crop it? Yeah, I will just do this. Crop, yeah, crop, yeah. So this is the render. There is stuff behind it and stuff after it. But this is in the middle, this is what's happening. It's a way to actually, and the same way we named our method render and React recognize it, we can name other methods in our class with some names and React will recognize them. One of them is the constructor. So if we will put a constructor as a method, which is both special because of JavaScript and React. It's not just JavaScript. So constructor is something that React we call when there is a new. Remember we said a new life cycle. That would be called. So we can say here, every time you say props, because you will get past your props, and you say super props. As we discussed, because props is the parent, so we can report to it. And now I can say console.log constructor console.log render. And we go to the browser. We have constructor, after that we have render. Is it clear? So because React will construct your application.
No. So again.
So because React, so we said that there is constructor and there is a render. Constructor is the beginning before mounting. Because when React will see that I want to put this on the screen, it will construct it with calling the constructor, which is both like a JavaScript thing, because classes have constructors so they can initialize themselves and everywhere. And we have a render. happening after. Okay?
Yeah.
So we have like the order constructor and render here. Is it clear?
Even you
We-
bring the construction function after that render,
It's not really about how it's defined. It's React is calling them.
yeah. The constructor now
You need to
first.
construct something before you run it, right?
What? You need to construct something before using it. It's the same thing. It's not about the
But here most of them they are separate function.
yes.
And now they are separate.
No, they are always separate. This is separate.
Yes.
Yeah. Is this one clear? So this will be called really in the beginning, before mounting. And so let's not talk about this. We can discuss it after. So after the constructor, there is a render. After the render, there is something called component did mount. It's like I'm done mounting. You know, it's like I finished. It's like construct me, I'm rendering, I'm done rendering. Clear?
Why we need it?
Yeah, we will discuss in details, but now you need to retain the knowledge that we have this and this and this. And we have recipes after to use them. But this is really important to get the concept when something is called.
Yeah.
So we can have component did mount.
This is internal function.
It's as we said, it's like recognized by React.
Okay.
So React is saying render and component did mount. It's like a code name.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like it's like a friend and you have like really special code names.
See this lifecycle that component mount, if you just hover the mouse. So it's something that React defined.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's discrete.
it's defined by name.
In
Yeah,
different
Okay.
function that characterize the class lifestyle.
exactly. It's like when you will be born, there will be a callback. When you will die, there is another callback or method or call it as you like. So we can say console.log did mount. So constructor render did mount. So this one is called first, this one after, and this one after.
Because when you call it on the React DOM, you call all the methods inside, yeah?
Yeah.
So you don't have to mention them or call them.
No, it's by default. It's like render. We didn't mention render, but React said if you want to render something, call it render. If you want it to run after the render, call it component did mount.
For constructor is obvious. For example, we want to make some data, but what can we do with the component did mount?
If this is not something you can. It's like you cannot say what we can do with the for loop. It's a concept that you solve your problems with. It's the same thing with React. We can talk about some specific stuff and we will use lifecycle, but you should understand lifecycle. So once you will be working and someone will present you a problem, you will understand this is a problem and this is lifecycle come after. It's like, for example, like let's say we are building a social network, okay? And you have when you visit someone's profile, it will say, this guy visited your profile, okay? So when the profile component will be done rendering, we say this guy visited your profile. This is an example. This is a dump example about how we can use it. But you should not really define it by a specific use case. It's more of a general knowledge that you can actually use to solve your problems. Just to mention one thing, there is something called component. Will mount. I'm not sure if they deprecated it now, but it's still working. But let's talk about something. So there is constructor, there is component will mount. It's like I will mount. After that there is the render. After that there is component did mount. So will mount is before is after the constructor, but before the render. But this is something that the React team is moving. So they are moving. They are removing it. It's not here anymore, kind of. But the purpose of this one is to run before the render. But if it's running before the render, why not running the constructor? Because both constructor and will mount will run before the render. So why we want to put it here? Why we can just put it in the constructor? You got the idea? Because both of them, they are running before the render. You can see constructor, will mount, render. So I can just group these two and put whatever I want here. I can just do this, like literally. Why having separate?
Okay, I'm using new mount.
What?
If I can do the same with constructor,
Why I need a will mount?
Yes.
Precisely. This is the idea. So they removed it. They are removing it, kind of. Clear? There is something else. This component will end mount. Means the component will be removed from the screen. It's like the death. So we say component will end mount. It's really descriptive names. Did mount, constructor, will end mount. It's like I will disappear. Okay? So we can say component, we can say did mount. Will end mount. But it's not here. Why? Because we still didn't remove the component. Will end mount.
after render.
No, it's not after render. Component did mount is after render. This will be called when the component will be removed. Let's say you are talking with a friend in a chat and you close his chat. That component will be removed. So we call component will end mount. But now hello is still there. We didn't remove it. So this callback will never be called. But in the future we will have like dynamic UI where we can click something to show, click another thing it will hide. And that will be useful because we can detect that this one is leaving.
So you need the function for every step, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you need to understand these functions, and after that, wherever the problem comes, you can reason about it in these functions.
Okay.
You get the idea? So it's not for specific thing, it's more of like available functionalities from a framework.
It will and mount services kind of local.
They are all kind of compact functions because they are called on your behalf. Someone is calling them. It's like giving your function to set timeout. But now you are giving whole class. But it's a callback somehow. But it's a different pattern.
Is it only 3 methods?
What?
Is it only 3 methods?
3 methods? What do you mean?
3 methods? No, it's method. Command mount. No, lifecycle has only 3 methods or has
There is a lot.
Alright.
No, not a lot. There is get snapshot before update. There is get derivative props, the derivative state from props. There is component did catch. There is component should update. So there is 4 more. But these are really rarely used.
Okay, it's
This is what is used. Like I use like these 4 once in a week, once in 2 weeks for 1 hour, just for a specific reason. Okay? But these are really important. And you have a graph now here, so you can actually not a graph, this. So you can actually visualize. So you can see should component update, get derivative state from prop, snapshot before update, component will end mount, component did update. So component update is when your component will be updated. Yeah. It's everywhere because almost like all the websites or all the frameworks, React, Vue, they have this kind of life cycle, and it's everywhere. If you navigate from page to page, if you do a lot of stuff. Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions?
No.
Okay, let's say now let's say we have like a
Excuse me.
Yeah.
But you wrote did amount, you know, it's a
did mount.
Yeah, did amount. But when you look at the console loop, you have something here, okay?
Yeah, did mount.
Okay. And you had the will amount.
Yeah, it's not here
It's not here.
because the component will not disappear. It's still there.
It's still to be done.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like
Remove, for example, using.
yeah. For example, like you can say to someone, when I will die, do something like that. But he will not do it now. When you will, so when this component will disappear, but now it's not disappearing. It's still stuck here. Well, we can have some dynamic stuff, but we will talk about when we have state.
Do you give us some examples?
Yeah, we will couple it with state, and that will be the more powerful thing too, actually. But I don't know if you have any question. I don't know if maybe you can explain more a bit about life cycle, or Christopher, or I don't know, like.
I think you covered it very well. I don't know. There's not much to say.
Yeah, it's
about it,
it's
actually.
clear, kind of.
Yeah, I think so.
But the main thing here, like the philosophy you need to understand, like how things are working. Like when you were trying to focus in a project, then for example, think about our to-do list. Okay, so our task is, okay, we're displaying a list of items in this case. Like think about other cases, like then, okay, I need to render something. So where is render? In the life cycle, in my component, it is all the way down. Okay, so I have an assignment, then before rendering, I need to do something else. So where I need to put that code? So it should, as it is, my plan is to put something before render. What are other options? There are other options, the constructor, some other component, blah, blah, blah. So these are the philosophy that you need to set in your mind. So it's nothing something that you need to, you use a lot. Like for example, if you know the driving, then it's automatically like when something comes, it automatically goes your foot on the brake. So it's something that comes automatically. So the whole idea is to set something in your mind, okay? And it only works when you have an assignment or something to do, okay?
It's like instead of using our own function, the React will call this like will.
It just make our life way more easy.
Yeah, instead of doing our own.
Yeah, because in developer's life, it's always something like, hey, you need to do this before that. So that's the command you get from your colleague. Like, do that, and before doing that, do other things.
Okay.
So there's an instruction that you get from your colleague. Okay, now your job is to put your code in the right place. Okay, I need to put it here, and as you say, that's the assignment. Okay, I will put before.
So for us, what we have to know is that the render is the last function and last method that the class will
In the life cycle, yeah.
So we don't have to care about I did mount, I didn't mount.
It depends. It's highly depends on
Because
your.
if we want, for example, there will never be, to have a method that want to execute after the render, but it doesn't make sense because the render is what we need at the end of this class. What we want to show on the client, isn't it? So that's what we need to understand.
Yeah, it's, as I told you, it's a philosophy. Just need to believe in that. React is responsible to do that part before that part, or doing something after one thing before another thing. So it's a kind of ecosystem that React already created. Our job is to use the right thing. Yeah.
You were explaining about the task.
Yeah.
But can you explain more? For example, if we want to make a task application, what's the role of, for example, construction, did mount? How does it work?
I think you will get that
What's the,
answer.
what's the role of the cycle?
Yeah.
How it help us to?
Okay, let's consider these things like everyone is trying to create a process. Like for example, in Hack Your Future, what is the process? You come at 12, there will be a stand-up meeting, then you will come to the class, and there is a break between, and again, and a stop. But so that's the process that already established. Okay. But is it something you come and just, hey, I don't want any what is called any break. I would like to take the whole class first. So then it is hard to maintain you, like as this is the whole system already developed, you are trying to kind of bypass or break the thing. So when you are in a team or in a group, then every team has some kind of philosophy. Every project has some kind of philosophy that this is the thing you need to follow. Okay, so it just gives you the idea that okay, no matter what, you cannot destroy the whole thing, whole application, because it has already well structured that no matter what, like for example, if it's a team play, so only because of me, the other thing has happened. That's not a good thing actually. So they just make an ecosystem so that everyone knows the philosophy and just boom, do whatever we want.
So,
And I think
who designed the, for
it's
example,
React. Sorry, it's Facebook initially, but it's now open source and people are maintaining.
For example, like there is a lot of life cycle that was added just few months ago. So they every time like the developers will be using React and they discovered, for example, will endmount, the one that I said it will be removed, they said like it doesn't follow really the architecture well. Some people started reporting and they said like literally someone said, but we have the constructor, why are we having two? So they said they removed it. So you can, for example, work on a really large project for months with React a lot. So you will have a lot of opinions on how React works. So you will start noticing problems with React because nothing is perfect. And you can go to the React team on GitHub and say, I have these problems, can we solve them? And in the next release, they will solve them. They will add a new lifecycle. For example, this lifecycle, get snapshot before update, and get these two are new. They are only in 2018, they added these two. Why? Because a lot of people use React and they start complaining. And they said like, oh, we want to use this and get the state from props, so let's introduce this and let's remove this. Like stuff like that. For example, this one called should component update. You can say like, should the component update? Because React by default will render everything. This component can say, I don't want to update. So you save some computation. You don't. It's just like to get the idea that it's really like, it's more of an architecture thing. And you understand all the stuff, how it fits, where you can put the stuff. And after that, if you have a problem, you can reason with your knowledge and the stuff that you have in your mind. So this is why it's called abstraction. You should not have an immediate use case to it. You just say, oh, we use this for this. For example, a set timeout, when you think about a set timeout, like, why I should use set timeout? But you know it. Once someone will say, oh, we need to run something every 5 seconds. Yes, I can use that API. You know, like, so you know abstractions, you understand it, and after that you can employ it in specific areas.
Probably we'll get more when we learn the state. Then
Yes.
you can put your ideas into the right place actually. So we'll start soon, I think.
Yes, we will start now. So I'll create a new file called maybe counter. So let's create a counter. Or yeah, counting up or down. Let's say up. So let's say x class. Or before, let's import React. React from React. And we say class counter extends React dot component. And we have a render, the code between me and React. Export default counter. Return 4 or something. You don't need to follow me. In the sense like you don't need to type code while I'm typing. You will have like you have exercises and stuff. We will in the second half. Okay. Is it clear? So now I want to return, for example, like let's say const counter equal 4 and return counter. And we can say import counter from counter. So this should show me 4. So the idea now is to have this number. So let's go and say instead of saying 4, I will say counter this dot props dot start. Okay. And we can say here start. let's say 4. That will be 4. If we say 5, hopefully that will be 5. Clear? Still now, it's still a simple component. So what do we want to do? When we show this component, we want this component to have a number 4, after that 5, after that you can just so you can we can have 5, 6. So every second the component will be like going up and up. So +1 every second. Is it clear? It's clear that we will do that using setTimeout. But how we will fit it using React? So we know that when a component will be displayed, I need to actually put a timer, which is a setTimeout. But when should I put it? In the render, in the constructor, in the component did mount? Where we should put it? I would say we can put it in the component did mount, because I'm safe that the component is done rendering. So when we are done rendering, and I'm sure that it's in the screen, because constructor we are not sure that it's in the screen. Maybe you want to render thousands of components. So thousands means like the constructor will be called, 3 seconds after it, or 4, the render will be called, because there is thousands of components that needs to be rendered. So component did mount means like I'm done rendering. So it's better to put it there maybe. This is sort of debate that you have with people that you work with. Should they put it there? Why we should not put it there? Because maybe it's slow. This is like but it's nothing wrong or right. It's debate. So I would say like I don't know if I convinced you about that or not. That
No, I'm thinking about the.
for example, if you have really like huge websites like Facebook or something,
Yeah.
you can start building,
Yeah.
but you have like thousands of posts.
Okay.
So you call the constructor for every post, but after 5 seconds they will be all there.
Yes.
So we want to call it after.
Yeah, I have a question, like, what are we going to learn here? What are we going to learn here? Like, what is the topic we're discussing?
To change
Website
the
life
props every second.
Or
Yeah.
what are we, no, what is specifically we are trying to learn now?
Then also structure our
Life cycle counter.
No, more general.
More
He's
general.
meaning more general things.
Cycle?
No, more general.
Designing your
Yeah.
website.
Life
running
cycle.
website.
Okay, we're going to learn state.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay, just make your thing clear. We have learned props and we know what it is. Now we are learning state. And whatever we are talking about, just put all the things into your folder state. Okay?
Yeah.
To just everyone knows what we are doing. Okay? And I was thinking that it was the confusion I have seen your face that where you are. Okay? So we are in state. We are learning state. And how this state comes with counter, like where is state, where is counter, like we are doing something, click and something come, how it match.
Because
Sorry.
Anyone
One of you we will not spend 1 hour like
Every component, they have their own unamount, and will amount.
like what is the state? We're learning state,
Okay.
but how this counter apps somehow relate with state.
because we want to change automatically every second. We want to change the state of that class.
Do you understand like how it matches with this counter apps with learning state? Ask me.
yeah, just ask.
Do you know what are you learning?
Because like the purpose of state, just to like put it into words, the purpose of state is like you have variables or something, and whenever you update these variables, your component will re-render and re-show itself on the screen. So as he said, we have a counter, we have state. Every second we update the state, and automatically we re-render. So we show a new counter every time.
So we change a state and it automatically changes the
Yes,
component.
yes. Instead of like, for example, props,
So we focus on a state and don't think about the component now. Not.
it's coupled together, but we are like fully state now.
Is it like when you check out something, but like you want to?
Can you a bit louder?
I'm sorry. Is it like status, which is explaining into the process where when you click something, like you check out on.
Could be. You could use it for that.
They quickly pop up this one.
Yeah,
so that's
you
the state.
you can use it for that. But as we said, we are trying to learn how the stuff fit together. I cannot say like you should use state for that. Maybe not. But you can use state for that. But it's something you can figure out while you are working, how to solve the problem.
It's like a remote of TV, remote control for TV.
Yeah, something like that you can control. So because until now we know that the component will take input props, but we don't know how we can actually make a component re-trigger stuff inside itself. For example, we have a to-do list. We add item, we remove item. How we can do that? That means that I will keep a state in myself, and whenever I remove a to-do or add an item, I need to re-render. So this is the whole idea behind the state. State is not something that you get passed from another component. State is something internal to a component, like a life cycle, and the component will operate on it.
Okay, let's learn something more and
Yeah.
hopefully you will.
In an example,
Yeah.
Then it depends on state, and when we change state,
Render will re-trigger again.
refresh.
It's called an update.
Okay.
An update will happen, and an update means like jumping to this one.
but we don't.
So this is mounting, this is updating.
Okay, new props in.
New props and new state
If we have new props, that means.
or new state. One of them. Either new props or new state. We don't need both of them. If there is new state or there is new props, the component will re-render. So
That makes it very interactive.
yeah, you can actually have state in your app, like empty, full, 4 friends, 5 friends, 6 friends, instead of just rendering static stuff.
We have a state for mounting also.
What do you mean state for mounting?
For example,
Yeah,
we
like-
define a state for mounting for a start.
Well, the life cycle, you will usually put the state here,
Okay. And after
but you can
that,
also put it here and there and stuff. But you can put the state anywhere you want because it's something it's like variable. You can declare it anywhere.
Okay.
So it's like you can start using it from the component did mount. You can start using it from the constructor. In our case now, for example, we will put it in the constructor. So we say constructor props, super props. We want to declare state. We want to add state to our component. And my state, I want it to be a counter, a number that is going up, up, up. Let's call it counter. State is an object. And you declare it this way, or you add it, you say this dot state equal, and you put an object. And whenever inside this object, you can put anything inside the object. Arrays, object, anything. It's like an object, JavaScript object. You can put anything. So I would say counter.
But it has to be an object.
Yes,
in the beginning.
needs to be an object
Yeah.
because object is the most flexible data structure that we know.
Yeah, it's have to be this statement. State.
This what?
No, it's declared like this.
Yes,
Uh,
this dot
it's not
state
possible statement.
like this.
Yeah, without this.
No.
That would be a variable. But I want to say to React, take this. So React component can detect it because we are extending it, and this is also coming from here.
It's a property. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this will make all the components access this one. Like this dot props. This dot props is set by this one.
Yeah.
And in the render we say this dot props. But from where this dot props is coming? It's from what we are extending, React component. Now we are doing the opposite. We are setting the state, and this one will operate on the state.
Yeah.
It's like we are communicating back and forth with our parent class. So we can say this dot state equal counter 0. This is called initializing the state. We're initializing the state. So like every variable, we initialize it. After that, we add stuff to it, print it. So here, instead of saying counter, I would say this dot state
The state
dot counter
counts.
because it's an object.
Yeah.
Or I can just pass it here.
Yes.
We have 0. But what we really want is like updating the counter every second.
Yeah, you need a function that add one number to the counter every second.
Yes.
So you need a function.
But so let's say I have a counter, okay? After the component will be shown, after 5 seconds, I want to make it 1 or 2 or 3, but not every time. Just like a set timeout, and after 5 seconds, run this, okay? So probably I will do it in the component did mount. So I'm sure that the component is mounted. Component did mount. Okay? Now I can say this dot state equal
Set.
counter. It's this dot state dot counter plus 1. Is this clear?
But somewhere I saw it.
Yeah, no. Is this clear?
Yes.
But
Just a second. Is this clear?
Yes.
From JavaScript perspective. So, but this is wrong in the React way. Why? Because we want to tell this component re-render ourselves. Like we want to set a new state. Because this doesn't really like, I will set a variable here, but who knows what I'm doing? Who knows that I'm updating? So instead, React give us a method called this.setState. You give it an object, and that object will be the new state, or it will be merged with the new state. So here we can pass counter. It's this dot. So when we access state, it's fine to access it with this dot state. But when we want to update it, it's not allowed to say this dot state equal, except in the constructor, because that's initial. It's our stuff. But after, in the subsequent like runs, you say this dot set state, and you give it an object. This dot state dot counter. Just think about it as like
plus 1.
set state. Yeah. Just think about it that set state is like saying this dot state equal exactly this object and putting it here. It's the same. Just a function that will automate that. Clear? Now it's only 1, literally. It's not 0.
But actually you lost the counter because when you refresh it you don't have 0 anymore.
Yes, I have 1 because I said old
Now
counter
that's
plus 1.
yeah.
Yes, I can say plus 5, plus 6, plus anything. Now, I don't want to run this straight away after the render. I want to run it 5 seconds after.
Set time.
We can put a set timeout. And we put it after 4 seconds maybe. And we pass a function here.
Yeah. The function is that.
And the function will run this after 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Let's wait. Yes. You got the idea?
Yeah.
What's happening here is that I will show this after 5 seconds. This callback will be called, and it will call set state. Set state will trigger the component to re-render again. So this is if we put console.log here, render. I will just do it 2 seconds maybe. So there is render, and after that there is a render. Okay, so there is a first render. I will just remove the lifecycle one because it's confusing us. So there is render, 2 seconds, another render. So render is called multiple times to show the new things. And this dot state, it will update the new. It will be updated to match the new state. Yes.
So render is called after each
Update.
change,
Yeah.
a state change.
Yeah, state change or prop change.
Or
We will see
state-
prop change.
state-
Yeah.
state.
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually it's a state. Yeah, because props can also change, but that's another story. Because you can pass this state to another component. You can pass this to another component, this dot counter, to another component. And whenever you update this, that component is consuming this and it will be updated itself. So we can use state as props. Let's not discuss that now, but we will do that. Is this clear? Clear?
Yeah.
You don't have any questions?
Can you put the console log?
Here?
Yeah. No, before that. Before set time.
You mean here?
Yeah.
Mount.
Yeah.
Render mount. You can see. After that, another render. There is a mount here.
Okay.
We can put 3 seconds just to. So render and mount will be fired. After that, a bit render. Because this one is running just after the render. But this one inside it will take 3 seconds.
Yeah, I know.
Put 0 seconds.
that will schedule it to be like straight away. Almost straight away.
Even here, we wrote the component did amount before the render, but
It doesn't matter if it's before or after. It's React.
yes.
It's the conventions of React. Constructor before this, because React is responsible for calling this. So React will call this, and this, and this,
Yeah.
because of the name.
Yeah.
So you put this really 1,000 lines after, it's by name.
Can you just use a string for the file?
What?
For the
What we can do?
for the counter, like instead of doing 5 number, can we exchange it as string?
Yes.
You mean hello like this? What?
Yeah, it's fine.
It will be like 0. It will be 0 hello
Zero.
because of JavaScript. JavaScript will concatenate this stuff. Now let's do set interval. That's more funny. Set interval.
What if we don't set the
Just a second. If we do set interval, it will be like
Okay.
updating every time. Because every time we are calling different set state.
But
Could you
can
bring the
you
code?
see you see the render?
Render is like multiple
again and
times.
again.
17, 18, 19.
And the render, yeah.
Yeah, it's called multiple times. Because we are re-rendering and calling set.
Just stop running code.
Until, because when you call set interval, until you don't, the clear interval, it never stops
No,
forever.
no. Yeah. We can do something crazy. We can do set timeout here and say after 10 seconds clear interval. Interval needs an ID. And set timeouts give us an ID. Const ID equal. Because a set interval will give us an ID, so we can clear it. Means stop it. So we will run set interval every second, and after 10 seconds we clear it, we stop it. It will stop after 10 seconds. It's like we are mixing shit up. Yeah, it stopped. Because after 10 seconds we stopped it.
So when you stop,
What?
it's not going.
He was decoded.
Huh?
He was decoded when it stopped.
Okay, let's make it 5 seconds, and this one will run every 5. So this is 50. It's until 10 or 9. Yes. Because we are running every half a second for 5 seconds, which is 10 entries. Clear? This is how we can use state. We can do something. You know what? We can, for example, instead of having counter here, we can add. Okay, so let's copy this component. And let's create a component called new file to do.js. It's in public. Sorry. We will literally copy this and put it there and just name these to-dos. Okay. And we import this one counter, we import to-dos. Okay. So here we will not have a counter, and we will disable all this stuff. We will say we have a list of to-dos. Okay, it's empty. Or let's start with one. Let's start to do one. Okay, it's just an object with the to-do key and then array. It's clear. So here in the render we can say to-dos dot map, and we say this dot state dot to-dos. So we say to-do and we say li, or so we need to wrap it in a UL. and wrap it in JSX fragment and say li key
And please explain
is
why
to
you
do
put it in a curly bracket.
this one.
Yeah, I know a little bit, but
Because it's JavaScript. If I will do this,
yeah.
it will be like let's say I will do this. Okay. I'm using the counter. Just a second. I'm editing the counter. Fuck. That was a bit stupid, but yeah, it's fine. So we can say here that I will do this, and I will do it again. To do, it's an array of a to do. We comment this code, and here we say this dot state, and we told me that if we have like this, if we have like this,
Yeah.
whites. It will literally print a string.
Yes, you're right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It by default, it's like hello or anything. But when you put, it's like doing this. It's when you do 1 plus 2, it will be 1 plus 2. But when you put it inside these, it will run as JavaScript, and it will be 3. This is the difference.
And sometimes I saw they put it in a double curly brackets.
Okay, there's something else.
You can do that actually, and yeah, as you said, that's something else. So just focus on now. Like if we can imagine all the scenarios, we would never finish. So it's li.
It's not yet. Well, there are some. If you, at least I can know that there is what is called a JavaScript plugin, something called. I don't even remember. It's something.
Handlebars?
Like, huh?
Handlebars?
Handlebars, yeah.
Oh yeah, handlebars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Handlebars. If you just
That's a
do-
templating
yeah,
thing. But
templating thing.
it's out. That's good. So we are running a to. So we are displaying to do here. If we say to do 1, to do 1. Now let's say. Oh, let's do this one. Let's say after set timeout. Let's say after 5 seconds or
1 second.
or 3 seconds. We want to add a new to do. Okay.
Yeah.
So the idea is to do something like this. Okay, let's not. Well, let's keep this now. Set timeout. Sorry, set state, and give us to dos. And to dos will be, for example, the this dot state dot to dos, the old one. We cannot say plus in JavaScript. We can say push,
Push. Yes, yes,
but push will not work.
Yeah. Why?
Push will not work because push will return the length. If you do like a x equal 1, or let's say hello x dot push 222, x will return
Yeah.
2. So this one
You need to new variable. Yes.
precisely. So I will say to do's equal, or I don't need to really use a variable. I can do this. This dot state dot push, and we'll say to do 2, and we just keep did state dot to do's.
So you will execute before and then you get the new one.
Sorry? What?
But is
Why you
on
did-
the like
You did it before? Before
What do you mean?
the stage to do.
So I will just like I get this dot state dot to do's, this one, and push to it a new string here,
Oh,
and after that set it again. Is it clear? It's like the counter. We set counter plus 1.
But you push it before the set time. But right now.
No, we don't push it before the set time. It's inside the set time.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, yes.
You can see the nested code.
Okay,
So now we should have to do several times.
We refresh 1, 2,
3,
and nothing will happen.
to do, and again to
Nothing
do.
will happen. Yes.
Okay.
But this is against the React way,
Why?
because you will have really hard time detect. So there is something called immutability, which is like when you want to edit something, you don't edit it itself. You make a copy of it and you edit the copy. Okay, and this is a flow React principle that you should not mutate stuff. You should create a copy of it. So if you want to add something to an array, you get the original array, you copy the array, you make a new array, and you add to it. This is how you should do it. There's a long discussion about immutability and performance and stuff, but we will keep it out of scope. You can document about that more. But instead of doing this, we can use, for example, like concat, and say to do 2. And concat will return a new array. So we say new to-dos. It's the same thing, but it's better this way. You will run into a lot of problems if you use push and mutate and splice and stuff. I don't want to really go into details about that. We don't have enough time, but favor immutability when you use React. Okay, because this one concat will return a new array. So if we can console.log this dot state dot to dos and new to dos. You will see the original one, we didn't really change it. We just like copy it and create a new one. You got the idea?
So concat is different on the array. It's not like the string that you make a unique word when you do use contact on shoe.
What do you mean?
Like when you do one concat hello,
Yeah.
it will not give you one and hello. It will give you one hello, everything.
Yeah, it will create a new variable.
Yeah,
it
a
will
new,
not.
a new variable. It will not create you two type of variable together in a thing.
No. It's like a new one. You clone it. You literally clone it. You clone the array. You add something to it. So it's like a clone. It's not the same array. So we can, instead of doing this, we can create a method. It's called add to do. Okay? And we say this dot add to do because it's a class. And here we can say add to do. And the text, we can bring it from here. Text. We can do this. We just like refactored the code to use a method. There's nothing fancy.
Somewhere I saw when we are going to use set state, we have to add something in the constructor.
Yeah, it's this one.
What?
No. We have to use, for example, this dot that function add to do equal to this add function dot
Bind.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's out of scope.
What
That's
if we
out
do?
of scope.
What if
We
do-
will talk about that. Just try to focus on what we are learning now.
Okay.
Because we discussed binding before. Remember changing the this and this is dynamic
Yes.
in the last class.
Yes.
This is why they do that. We will talk about that.
So
What
we
we-
are going to talk about it in the future, yes? In future.
Yeah, but just try to focus now on the.
What if we do instead of to do two,
Just a second.
we do two. We do to do plus to do and we close the bracket plus the.
I don't understand what you mean. Give me an idea. Don't give me the code. I cannot type.
No, add to do. You know add to do.
Where is yeah
Indeed, that add to do.
yeah.
Okay, you give a text inside.
We are giving the text.
Okay, yeah. What if you do just to do as a string and then you do plus and the number so you can increment it
Yeah,
without
but that's
change it any
yeah.
time.
But that's That's out of scope. We can do a lot of stuff. We can have this text getting it from an input and stuff. That's out of scope. We are trying to keep it minimalistic. You know what I mean? Just as minimal as possible, so we can all grasp specific knowledge instead of. Is this clear? Do we get the why we use how it's called? State. Because we need to re-render the time. We can do something like tricky. Do we have the list component? Header. Yeah, we have the list component. So we can export this one. This is really React reusability in action. We can export this one, and we can go to the to-dos and say import from. It's in the header. We say to-do list. This one. So now we can say, instead of doing our own stuff, we can say list and list accepts exactly something called items. So we can say items. It's this dot state dot to-dos. And we can reuse that components to render our stuff. This is like reusing components from nowhere. Like, is this clear? How we are using this component? So we are passing our state, because state is just an object. I can pass it around. So now I have this dot state dot to-dos. It's just an array. So I can say console.log. It's literally just an array.
You mean that the state doesn't change from component to component? It's
No.
same, you have one
So what's
statement or one statement for each component.
Well, I don't understand exactly.
Each component has one statement.
Every
Or-
component, when it's rendered, it holds its own state and internal stuff. So this component, for example, the to-dos component has a state inside it.
Okay, and the other one has
The other ones
another-
have their own states.
Okay.
Every component has its own state. It's internal to the component. It's like you. You have your own body, it's internal to you.
Okay.
It's the same thing with state. It's something inside the component. But what I'm trying to really emphasize here, that I'm passing the to-dos as a value to items.
Because items take
An array.
The array on
Exactly. So instead of passing an array, I'm passing here to-dos.
Yeah.
Is this clear?
Yes, every component have one constructor and the connector can just have one state.
No. Every component has its own state. State is an object. You can put wherever you want in it. You can, for example, put to-dos and counter for and name.
Yeah.
It's just an object.
Yes.
But every component has an object that its state.
Yeah.
Is this clear? We are taking our own state and passing it to a component. But there is one thing. Now this component list is responsible for rendering. So initially we have one to do. After that we have the second one. So this component list is re-rendering. Why? Because every time we re-render the component with the set state, this re-render will run again. And it will re-render all the child component that this component is re-rendering. Make sense? Yes. So this one, it will be re-rendered again. So when the parent re-render, the children will re-render too, to get the new values,
Can you follow this parent-child thing?
But when you do,
What is that? What is parent? What is child in your brain?
Where is parent and where is child? Yes.
Yeah.
What's the question?
In your brain, what is parent and what is child, and how they fit together in a component? Just tell me.
I didn't get the question.
Just describe what is this parent-child
Yeah.
that
Can you-
Ines just described.
Oh.
What?
There will be a single parent,
Mhm.
and every time the child will be added,
Mhm.
something like that.
Can you do some modification and just see this parent-child relationship?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just give us the example first. How can we prove that all child belongs to one parent?
The parent should be this state, yes?
Let's say this one.
Is parent?
Let's say this one. This one. The div here has 2 children. And the to-do has 1 child, which is the list. So it's like a list. Div has 2 children, and this list has 1 child. And whenever one of the parents update, it will rerender
Update
all the
family.
subtree.
All the subtree.
It's called the subtree, like a partial tree. It will all get updated.
They will inherit the change on
Yeah.
on their.
By default, you can skip that. It's that more advanced, but by default, yes. But this is what he's talking about: the parent-child relationship. When a component will render some stuff, they will be their
We
children.
rewrite a state for the child. We rewrite a state for the child, but the state is from
The parent.
But we change the state for the child.
No, but the parent will change the state. The parent provide the state, and the parent will change it with the set timeout
Oh,
and set state, and the child will rerender every time the parent will rerender.
okay.
You got the idea?
Yeah.
So the child is re-rendering every time the parent is re-rendering.
So the
So it's
parent
like
decide about the state.
precisely.
Okay.
There is nothing here about state in this component. Nothing. It's only accepting some stuff, and this component is responsible for that. It's time for
Lunch.
break.